Hello there, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to the channel. So I've been thinking a lot about the future of Star Wars animation post The Bad Batch. For those of you not familiar, the first ever Star Wars animated series on Disney Plus, The Bad Batch, has just wrapped up its third and final season. There were so many plot points scattered throughout The Bad Batch that reference so many different parts of the early Dark Times era, whether it was a look inside the Senate, seeing how the clones were treated post-Clone Wars, the initial struggle for power between senators and Supreme Chancellor, now Emperor Palpatine, an insurgent clone rebellion led by Rex and Echo, and staunchly loyal clones turning away from the Empire like Wolf and Cody. A lot of these plot points were some of the most interesting parts of The Bad Batch, yet when Season 3 wrapped up, a lot of us were a little disappointed that they were never actually finalized. While I personally was a fan of Season 3's more linear story that did focus on the family unit of the Bad Batch, Season 3 was missing a lot of the cameos and reference points that pointed towards a larger importance for the Bad Batch in the history of Star Wars shows. And all in all, when the Bad Batch wrapped up, without spoiling too much, there wasn't much that happened in this show that makes it absolutely essential to the larger narrative of Star Wars. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed The Bad Batch quite a bit, but today we're here to talk about what is coming next, because I've been thinking a lot about it, and I think it is going to be a show titled The Dark Times. What do I mean by the Dark Times? Well, the Dark Times is a 19-year period of time between the end of Revenge of the Sith and the beginning of New Hope, as referred to by Obi-Wan Kenobi in this scene in Episode 4.
For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic. Before the Dark Times. Before the Empire.
I know, everybody. Don't turn off the video. I am also tired of Dark Times stories. Just in Star Wars canon alone, we've explored the Dark Times in 4 shows already. Not to mention the only 2 spin-off Star Wars movies were Solo: A Star Wars Story and Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, both taking place in the Dark Times. And it doesn't just end with Star Wars film and TV. Our only 2 major story-based video games in Star Wars canon are Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, both set in the Dark Times. And even if you want to go to the written page, so much of what we focused on in novels have also been in the Dark Times, from the canon Thrawn trilogy to the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, books that have enhanced movies like Solo and Rogue One, as well as Ahsoka, Lords of the Sith, Tarkin, even Jedi Battle Scars, and we can't discount the best Star Wars canon comic book series, which is Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith by Charles Soule, again, in the Dark Times. So I completely get it if you're tired of Dark Times storytelling. I am too. But here's a counter to that. One of the most common threads throughout all of those things is the majority of them take place in 10 BBY or closer to A New Hope. The time period near the beginning of the Dark Times is still relatively nebulous. The Bad Batch has almost been our only major touchstone around this time period. Again, yes, we have Ahsoka, we have Lords of the Sith, we have Tarkin. There are some things around this time. But what I'm proposing is a major piece of Star Wars storytelling that connects the beginning of the Dark Times era with the middle that we have seen so heavily fleshed out. A show that's not just character-centric, but story-centric. One that drives the plot forward into A New Hope and gives us our definitive Dark Times experience. One of the reasons we keep exploring the Dark Times is because the Dark Times is one of those unique periods in Star Wars where almost every major character from the Prequel Trilogy and the original trilogy are still alive. And in my Dark Times show pitch, I would say we tackle all of these characters in a Clone Wars style arc-based show where every 2 to 4 episodes we complete an arc about a different character. Want a 4-episode arc about Darth Vader hunting down Jedi? Want a politically driven episode about Mon Mothma, Senator Chuchi, and Emperor Palpatine? Want something smaller and more kid-friendly like a Farm Boy Luke episode or Leia on Alderaan? Want to know about Han Solo during his time in the Imperial Academy between the prologue in Solo: A Star Wars Story and when we pick up with him on Mimban? We can do our Clone Rebellion series here. Bring back Cody and Wolf. Explain what happens to them. Show a bunch of episodes from Rex's perspective, from Echo's perspective. Bring back the Bad Batch. Keep that Clone Wars animation style and let this be the final place where you marry that animation style to ultimately what we get in Star Wars Rebels, 15 years later. I think it would be a brilliant way for Lucasfilm to satisfy everybody's interest in Star Wars. Instead of focusing on maybe new characters that we've never heard of, build new characters into a world that's also populated by characters we're familiar with. One of the hanging plot threads from The Bad Batch Season 3 that I personally didn't like was the reintroduction of Asajj Ventress. One of my favorite Star Wars books of all time is Dark Disciple, and if you read Dark Disciple, spoilers, she dies. So Asajj Ventress has been resurrected off screen, brought into one episode to do basically nothing, and then she disappears and we never see what happens to her again. In the Dark Times, you could bring her back for a story with Quinlan Vos, who we know is alive from the Obi-Wan Kenobi show and up to at least 9 BBY. Anytime in between that, you could do a story about Ventress and Vos that gives us a real reason why she should be back and why her perfect end is now retconned. There's also other famous Star Wars characters that we've created models for in the Clone Wars or in the Bad Batch that you could easily bring back into this animation style and tell stories for. Want a Hera Syndulla story? We've got the Hera Syndulla model. Want a Kanan story? We've got the Kanan model. And of course, the one I've been saying a bunch in this video, give us that Vader arc in the Clone Wars animation style. I want to see the Sith machinations of Palpatine testing Vader in the early days post his burn on Mustafar and transformation into the mechanized Vader in the suit. We see a bit of it in Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. I want to see a lot more of it in this show. Of course, we can use this time period to bring back a lot of other juicy stuff from Star Wars Legends. Just some characters who were alive and active during this time that we could see in a story like this. One of them very much so might intrigue you if we did a Darth Vader story. Why not use Starkiller or Galen Marek in a story? We could loosely adapt the video game, bring him in to the world in a power level that is more consistent with the novel rather than the video game. And Sam Witwer is heavily involved in Star Wars animation, voicing both Palpatine and Darth Maul in the Clone Wars. Why wouldn't he want to return to play this character? I already mentioned Quinlan Vos, but the whole idea of this path that exists in Obi-Wan Kenobi 10 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith means that the Inquisitorius has been hunting down a whole lot of other Jedi that have died prior to us seeing those survivors written on the wall in that Path episode. And then of course all of the other Jedi who were revealed to be alive in the Darth Vader Dark Lord of the Sith comic book. If you did a Han Solo Imperial Academy story, you could also bring in the character of Valance, who is one of the big characters from Star Wars comics. Maybe Dr. Aphra can get her first animation appearance in this show. Someone who has lost a lot of his importance not being a part of Rogue One, but still remains one of the characters I would like to see brought back into canon is Kyle Katarn, who we know is active during the end of the Dark Times era and can certainly be involved in the show at some point. Here's just a few of the most famous stories from Legends and Dark Times that could be adapted. The Force Unleashed, the Dark Times comics, the Empire comics, the Dark Forces video game, the Droids animated series can get an homage in this animation, the Last of the Jedi Junior novel series by Jude Watson, Death Troopers, the Kenobi book, which does take place immediately after Revenge of the Sith, and you could still do that exact same story without contradicting anything in Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Han Solo trilogy, which kinda has loosely been adapted in Solo, a Star Wars story, but more adventures with Han and Chewie could be told here. James Luceno's excellent Revenge of the Sith sequel, The Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader, the Lando Calrissian and Han Solo adventures, and the Battlefront 2 story about the 501st, just to name a few. I could go on and on forever about what plot lines would make this show excellent. But ultimately, it's not about adapting things or continuing things as much as it's about giving us a definitive piece of Star Wars that truly bridges the gap between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. That unified style of storytelling, satisfying almost every branch of the fandom, I think is what made the Clone Wars so special. Bringing that same exact style of show, putting it in the Dark Times, and giving us all what we want is, I think, the smartest move Lucasfilm can do at this point as they try to truly make their stamp in animation on Disney+. The Bad Batch was a great start, and honestly an excellent continuation when we see the evolution of this animation style from way back in 2008 to where it is today. So instead of giving us episodes in another singular focused Star Wars animated show that tease and hint at other things going on in the Dark Times, like the Asajj Ventress episode that was basically just there for the trailer for season 3 of The Bad Batch, why not give us a show that truly delivers to the type of storytelling that you want to do on every single front across the Dark Times? You're already doing that same exact style of Clone Wars arc storytelling with Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire. Might as well turn it into an entire series that has 16 to 22 episodes on Disney Plus, where we can enjoy 4 or 5 different arcs surrounding all of our favorite Star Wars characters during this time period. So let me know what you think of my idea for the Dark Times show. Do you like this idea? Would you rather them go singular focus with just a Clone Rebellion show, or a Ventress and Voss show, or a Jedi-based show, probably another Ahsoka show? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this content, make sure you like the video. It helps me out so much with the algorithm. And subscribe for more great Star Wars content just like this. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you all next time.